I've always had an interest in tech, so I'm not too sure how it would work for someone who hadn't been in the tech scene and then they decide to now jump into tech. But on my side, growing up, I've always had an interest in computers. It was also even like cell phones and the likes. I never actually had a console, so I was more like a PC gamer and the likes. So the thing is that, yeah, it's more of a case of, I think, the curiosity. That's how I even got into like the VR space. It's not like when I was studying at university that they were like, hey, there's this thing called VR, right? Or even when it came to iOS development, that was actually what I did after university. That was all self-taught. So the things that to a large degree, you don't have to be a technical person to get into IT. There are a variety of tasks and issues that you can deal with, right? That don't require you actually having to code. I think more than often is this more of a case of how can you actually assist people in actually being able to accomplish this.
Welcome to another AT Makers Movement chat. Today we have crypto enthusiast, Shopify Store Builder, NFT Art collector, and African Technopreneurs founder and managing director, Daliso Ngoma. Between building a growth startup, co-hosting online and offline VR community events and hackathons, while still keeping up with the latest cutting-edge tech, Daliso has spared some time as he shares the no BS realities of being an African tech entrepreneur. Standing in for Yenzi this week, my name is Refile Saretlo, and I hope you enjoy our episode.
Hi Daliso, how's it going?
All good, all good. How are you?
I'm good. So tell me about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Daliso Ngoma. I'm the managing director and founder of African Technopreneurs. We specialize in trying to get more people into the AR and VR space. Particularly on our side, it will be bringing hardware into the country and not forgetting the 360 cameras as well.
So, okay, that's pretty cool. So now AR and VR hardware, it's quite a new space. Not so many people know about it. Or can you just give a briefly touch on what that is, what the VR and AR industry is about?
Yeah, so I think, expanding on the acronyms, it would be that AR would be augmented reality and then VR would be virtual reality. So I think with AR, I'll probably use mixed reality more than anything else, where you can augment or put virtual objects within a real space or in the real world, to be precise. So that can be done with your phone. I think most people would use their phone as an AR device, but then there's specific devices such as like the HoloLens that you can put on your face, and you can actually remove the 3D holograms and the likes, even using your hands or even using controllers. With virtual reality, as the name says it, is that it puts you into a virtual space. There are a few headsets that do allow you to actually interact even with the real world, but typically it would be an enclosed space. It's usually a bunch of virtual reality goggles. I think I've got sets just on the chair where I'm sitting, but you put it onto your face and you can transport yourself into a new place. So it could be that you're in space, it could be that you're underwater, it could be that you're playing a game, or it could be that, hey, you're working out, but that's pretty much it between the two. And why we specialize on the hardware is because not a lot of people bring it in. I think the VR industry has been around for probably, or at least in recent times, probably around like 5+ years with the current hardware that we're looking at. But yeah, that would pretty much be it. And hopefully that explains what AR and VR is.
Mm-hmm. So you briefly touched on why you chose to specialize in bringing in the hardware. Can you just expand a bit more on that? I think a lot of people probably are interested in bringing in hardware, but they don't necessarily know how to get started. So I think that's also something that you could probably just expand on.
Yeah, I think this also comes from a bit of past experience. When I was still studying at the time, this was in university, I would actually come back to South Africa with hardware. I saw that there was a gap in the market, and I started off with the likes of the Carbonite forum, so carbonite.co.za. I presume they might still exist, but that was primarily one part. The other thing was also on the fact of at least trying to go probably for the easiest targets. It's not to say that hardware is easy, but it was one of them that does not require that much effort per se. You don't have to code anything. All it is that you bring in the product, you put up your markup, and you sell it to someone else. So that was it. And then it was also on the fact that as much as VR and AR are seen as these big things, quite a lot of it still requires hardware. I think up until the day that maybe people have a ubiquitous AR or VR headset in their house, then maybe our job might be done. But for the time being, it was just on the basis of trying to look into that. And yeah, my approaches have worked from a variety of angles, be it that I bought it from the manufacturer's website if they allow shipping directly to South Africa, or be it that I've purchased items from Amazon, or for instance, if you do have the good graces, being able to talk directly with the supplier. But yeah, the things which would be needed is that I think obviously starting out, you don't need an importer's code. You can use your ID number, but then obviously with us running as a business, we had to obviously register for an importer's code. And then also on the fact of like SARS, when it comes to that, if you register for that, at least you can also claim that back when it comes to the import duties as well.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's quite interesting. You had mentioned that it's quite bringing in the hardware would be simpler in a sense than coding and developing the software side of things. But I do know that you do have a degree in computer science. So how did that transition happen? Where? Because I think for anybody watching, probably their question is, how do you transition from being a computer scientist that does deal with a lot of the development side of things to bringing in the hardware?
I think it's just an interest in business. So it doesn't really require that you need to program. The programming part comes with the fact of the tools which are needed to actually assist in moving the product. So obviously for ourselves, we do sell on TechLot, Macro, Loot, a few resellers as well. And then also on the fact of Shopify. So with Shopify, I got to know about it because of my coding experience with Ruby. So Ruby is another programming language, and then obviously for web frameworks, there's one called Ruby on Rails. So it was like a natural transition. I don't know how the chat came up, but Shopify was just one of those new kids on the block where I was like, okay, well, I need something that's quick to actually get myself sorted. And yeah, moving between the two is that the one involves heavily being in front of a computer. The other one involves people in a sense. I think they're two different modes, but it was more of a case of problem solving. I think that's literally what my degree in software engineering hopefully got me, which was an amplified amount of problem solving in a sense.
And do you think as a founder, the core of your job does then become just that problem solving on a variety of multiple aspects?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that's the role of any sort of entrepreneur. When you're trying to start up, you necessarily have to look at how you can actually solve the problems, obviously at the most affordable rate that is possible. Of course, it's not to say that you want to be a cheapskate, but the thing is that you also want to become profitable. Because if you are profitable, then you can actually redistribute those funds either back into the business or even into the people's hands who actually work for the business. So the thing is that, it's having to coordinate and be very strategic. Initially, even though I was the founder, I was doing everything. As in, I think, when you see those web pages where they look at CMO, CTO, CEO, and it's the same person with different disguises, that's literally what it started out with me on that front. So you end up actually just doing a whole lot of things. And then slowly but surely, once you've got the cash flow going in, that's when you can actually bring in people, because obviously you just can't be doing everything all at once.
So then for anybody who's sort of interested, for anybody sort of interested in the tech startup space, right? Or someone who's trying to start a business or an aspiring founder, what has your experience been being in this sort of ecosystem of founders and tech companies in Africa?
I've always had an interest in tech, so I'm not too sure how it would work for someone who hadn't been in the tech scene and then they decide to now jump into tech. But on my side, growing up, I've always had an interest in computers. It was also even like cell phones and the likes. I never actually had a console, so I was more like a PC gamer and the likes. So the thing is that, it's more of a case of, I think, the curiosity. That's how I even got into like the VR space. It's not like when I was studying in university that they were like, hey, there's this thing called VR, right? Or even when it came to iOS development, that was actually what I did after university. That was all self-taught. So the thing is that to a large degree, you don't have to be a technical person to get into IT. There are a variety of tasks and issues that you can deal with, right? That don't require you actually having to code. I think more than often is this more the case of how can you actually assist people in actually being able to accomplish the goal. So even like, for instance, in most startups, you do have community managers, right? Where they can actually manage the community. Whilst you've also got like, this would be product managers, as in, I highly doubt that they're that technical, but the mere fact is that you actually mold the product. Even like your designers, and they don't have to be coders. They can be the ones that actually design things where it's the user experience or even the user interface and how people can actually interact with that. So yeah, there are a variety of places that people can actually jump into. But I think more than not is not to go with that old saying of like follow your dreams. But I think to a large degree, quite a lot of the times, even if you've got those dreams, quite a lot of it can be found in tech. I'd be very surprised if like even your content creators, right? They're using, like, for instance, obviously it was the days of Instagram and now TikTok. It's still technology in a sense. So you can actually even build on top of that without having to actually be in like the hard coding of stuff. It's a different ballgame, but I like it. It's something that I think, like with anything, just because a person is a journalist doesn't mean that they have to learn how to code. Maybe it might learn or actually teach them as to what happens behind the scenes, but it's not essential for everybody to get into it.
Mm-hmm. So just touching on tech now, what are the other spaces that you find interesting within the tech space? Because as you're saying, a lot of our daily experiences revolve around tech, from the TikTok to Uber Eats to I don't know, even getting just your internet connection and things like that. So what are some of the spaces that interest you in terms of the direction that tech is taking?
Yeah, as in, I think the most recent one has been the cryptocurrency space, or crypto. Some people might actually even lambaste me to say, why exactly are you saying crypto? It must be Bitcoin, or it must be Ethereum. So as far as it goes on that front, that's the way it's been quite interesting. The decentralized finance aspect of being able to move money across the world, even the whole fact of like NFTs, which currently is more art focused. So the mere fact is that, hey, it's like a digital art piece or whatever. Quite a lot of people make the joke that you can just right click and save the image or the video, but the whole aspect is more towards like ownership. It's somewhat of a social contract that what's stopping another person from creating the same NFT. But if you know the person has created it and they've also got that reputation, I think those are the things that also just carry within the space. But yeah, I think that's been one of the few fields that I've recently jumped into. Apart from that, one I do want to get back into would be networking, as in like computer networking. So like your routers, your switches, and all that other stuff. I do touch on it from time to time. But yeah, I think probably the crypto side would be something of interest. But again, even when you jump into that, people might think, oh no, but I have to like be like this technical person, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, there are a whole lot of opportunities in every single space that tech is actually involved in, to be quite frank.
So, like for example, with the NFTs, there's such a new sort of concept. I think, as you're saying, a lot of people are questioning, okay, if you can write and say, why am I paying thousands of dollars for a digital artwork, right? But I think personally, I think that's sort of maybe one of the first test cases for. But what are some of the opportunities that you think these spaces can grow into? Like, what are the future implications of this technology?
Yeah, so I think one of them would be obviously on finances and the likes. Right now, when it comes to wanting to get a loan, you'd somewhat have to show proof of funds. That'll be on the basis of like your pay slips and the likes, but it doesn't necessarily equate to how you actually spend that money, right? Sometimes I think if there was more of that transparency as to how your money's being spent, it could be that you might be more favored in terms of the loan that you can actually get. Or for instance, just due to the fact of maybe you just show face, as in it's kind of odd that one should only just show 3 months bank statements and 3 months salary, as in you could always just like move money around to actually just show that you can actually prove such a state. But at least with crypto is that you can collateralize the loans with your actual assets, right? And some of them, I think the one was Alconnect, where it can actually pay off the loan for you. So there are a variety of aspects that actually come into the space. Even with like NFTs, you think of like ownership. So maybe it might be a car, a house, and the likes. And that's obviously something that will take quite a lot of societal change for that to actually happen. But you can just imagine, as in, if for instance I wanted to sell my car, the person necessarily had like maybe like 500 Rand or 500,000 Rand, and they were to just send it from their crypto wallet. It might be another system altogether in the future, and then they've got ownership of my house, right? It might be that there has to be a counterparty to actually make sure that that is true, but to a large degree, it actually does remove quite a lot of complicated mess that's being brought out, where you have to sign so many contracts or whatever. That's why there's even the talk of smart contracts, but it's still the very early days. I'm not too sure as to where things would actually go, but at least I think when it comes to even transacting, it just takes like a few minutes or even a few seconds for funds to move from this side to the other side. Of course, there'll be the remarks, but Visa and the likes can already do that. But I think for anybody who's actually tried to do any sort of Swift transactions, which would be sending money abroad, it does require a bit more effort. And there are all these middlemen in between. And I think that's what crypto does, is quite transparent as to what exactly is happening. And if there needs to be a middleman, at least you can actually read and see what exactly is happening within the code itself.
Okay. So now with all of this that you're mentioning and the future implications of what this tech can do, how do you see African technopreneurs getting involved in that? Or what's the future direction of AT in the midst of all this new tech?
Yeah, so I think it's just having to try and get more people exposed to the technology. I think that was just the whole emphasis when I even started the company, which was on the basis of how can I actually get more people to actually be building their businesses, and I can just be an enabler of that, right? So even last year we had the AR VR Africa hackathon, and that's got guys exposed to AR and VR for the first time, right? So the thing is that even with crypto, I don't know where it would fit within the company. I just dabble with it in my personal capacity, but maybe there might be a use case, or there might be some sort of interesting project that we can work in internally. Also, for instance, I reckon that it will have to be some other new tech. I don't know, as in I'm not really one for buzzwords, so it's really a case of technology is supposed to be a tool to actually help people, right? Rather than, I suppose, just a nice to have. Of course, like with anything else, I can't really say that people don't like to be entertained, but it's really having to find out what is exactly am I plugging in into the ecosystem, and that people can actually play around with it. Because again, is that, for instance, I think with Africa as a whole, if we get to be exposed to this new technology, at least I think it gets us onto an equal footing compared to the fact that we have to wait years before the tech comes in. And that's partly why, even with African technopreneurs bringing in the VR headsets and the likes, is to actually get people exposed, and hopefully the very companies that aren't shipping directly as of yet to actually see that there are great opportunities within the continent.
And I think, so I think now, as my last question, right, is African technopreneurs, what's the future of African technopreneurs then? Right now, you're talking hardware, you're talking about enabling other people, other businesses, enabling creators as well, to sort of people that are developing their own AR and VR work, just helping them along their path in terms of providing them with the tech. But what is the future of AT?
It will sound funny. Just have fun. That's literally what I think the future of AT would be. I feel that sometimes we take things a little bit too seriously, but yeah, it's just an environment to just get people exposed to new technology, good vibes, and just hoping that we can actually improve the environment around us. So the future is unknown, to be quite frank, as in I can always just say that, oh yeah, we plan on doing A, B, C, and D, but all I can just tell you is that AT started out building websites to begin with, and then slowly but surely got into selling FlexiRoam, which is a roaming product. And then shortly after that has been selling virtual reality and augmented reality equipment for the last 3+ years. So, hey, as to what the next frontier might be, it might be something that I see on YouTube and be like, that it looks quite interesting. Maybe we should actually try that.
Okay, so now we're going to go into our rapid fire round. I'm just going to ask you a series of questions, and you just answer what first pops up into your head. Your favorite superhero and why?
I think I don't have a favorite superhero. I could say Superman. Superman, as in, I don't know, as in Superman could do everything. It was only, I think, kryptonite that could hurt him. So yeah.
So you definitely struggle in the crypto space.
Yeah.
Are you a morning or a night person?
Morning or a night person? I'm probably a night person.
Favorite place you've ever been?
Favorite place? I'll just think of like the most recent place is Wasabi, as in terms of restaurant. Yeah, as in it's just because they have a nice tuna steak. So yeah, as in if there are other favorite places, though, I'd have to really think about it. But yeah, as in usually I don't have like any favorites, so that's why obviously when you say it's like probably favorite color, I can say blue. But apart from that, yeah, most of them will be like just in the moment.
Worst job you could imagine having?
Are you saying?
Worst job you could imagine having?
Worst job? I've already gone through it. Data capturing. Because maybe some people like it, but it was mundane work. It was just like capturing a whole lot of text into a whole lot of fields. Yeah, we got paid a decent salary, but yeah, it was just frustrating. Apart from that, yeah, I think most jobs you can actually make them into a good job, but I think a job that doesn't require me thinking is probably the job that I would not actually enjoy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that wraps it up for our chat today. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we can do this again, maybe in a couple of months, maybe in a couple of weeks, and we can get updated with where you are in terms of your journey, where African Technopreneurs is, and what you're doing at the time.
Well, thank you, Rafika.